Hi, guys, and welcome to today's Women in the City talk. This is the second day of the summit, and I'm so excited to have you all present to hear our social media masterclass. I am joined by such amazing women who choose to challenge the hashtag for International Women's Day and month, and they choose to challenge within their industry. They're challenging the status quo when it comes to women in business, women in the social media and digital space, and I'm so excited to hear from everybody. So I'm firstly going to make the floor open to everyone to introduce themselves and give us a bit about what they are and what they do. Charlotte, you can go.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm a senior digital communications strategist for the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. And I've been working in social media between government and crisis comms and on the journalism side, the digital journalism side, since about 2013.
Nice.
I can go, yeah.
Okay.
I'm Shannon and I work at the Very Group. I look after all influencers, social media and content marketing. I also founded TheCLCK about 3 years ago, which is an influencer marketing platform. And I've been in fashion e-commerce for about 7 years now.
Lovely.
Hello, I'm Natalie Sherman, and I'm the founder of Naturally Social. We're a social media agency based in the southwest of England, working specifically with businesses and organisations that put purpose before profit.
Hi everyone, how are you doing? My name's Lucy and I'm a founder of Viso Media, Social Day and Digital Women, and I am also an advocate for digital skills for women and small businesses as well. Great to be here.
Lovely. So we're going to just dive straight into it because I know there's so many people that just want knowledge, that want to just pick your brain. So we've got a few questions here, and honestly, it's a candid conversation. Feel free to just go deep dive into it. Keep it real and just let us know every single thing. So I'm going to start off with you, Shannon. So just give us a bit of background. I know you work at Very now, but give us a bit of background to TheCLCK. How did you found such an amazing platform that attracts all these top brands and influencers? How did you kind of go about it? What sparked it? What's been your journey so far?
Yeah, so I started TheCLCK at the age of 23. I just saw the opportunity of working with different influencers in the fashion space, and it was kind of something I just really loved since the beginning of social media. In terms of the brands we worked with, in the first 6 months, we onboarded brands like Pretty Little Thing, Topshop, ASOS, Farfetch. And I think a lot of people think that just came about naturally, but it definitely was something that was quite a difficult process. But ultimately, it came down to adding value. So for the first few years, we did everything on we partnered with Swarovski. We did loads of things on an adding value basis rather than making money kind of business model, and kind of showed our work to the world. And then it just kind of escalated from there.
Oh, wow, that is so amazing. So you said you onboarded all these amazing brands within 6 months. How did you go about it? How did they trust that you would be able to deliver the service that you're providing in just 6 months of launching?
I think, again, it comes down to adding value. So there's two parts. It obviously, we used a very set path and logic, but ultimately I would say it came down to us adding value for the first few years and people seeing our work, seeing our level of content, seeing the kind of audience we were attracting, the influencers we were working with. And as well as that, another element was we were always creating amazing content and working with top talent, and we knew exactly who our customer was, and I think that was really important. We had loads of different brands approaching us, but we knew exactly we were kind of a mix, someone from who would want to buy high street from Pretty Little Thing to someone who wanted to save up for a Gucci bag. So we knew exactly our customer was, so the brands had confidence that our brand matched theirs.
Oh, wow, that's so amazing. I'm just going to go over to Lucy. Hi. You're doing such amazing work. There's so many people that are starting businesses on a daily basis. So many women are like always empowered to like get up and actually do the dream job, start the dream business that they've always wanted to start. What tips do you have for anyone that is starting out their business, even if it's like just a small cake bakery company from their home? What do you think they should do on social media as a small business?
Okay, so obviously there's a lot of things that people can do on social media, but the first thing I think a small business should think about before they get started is just, what are my goals for using these different platforms? Like, first of all, what is it that I want to achieve? That's the first thing. And then really understanding who their audience is, because they're going to have to create content for this audience on social media. And then the next thing I would do is I would definitely try and create some sort of a plan, because it's really easy to just start posting stuff on social media and just seeing what sticks. But actually, that could end up wasting a lot of time. And before you know it, you're on your phone and you're posting something on social media every day, hoping that it's going to gain some traction. But actually, just having in mind your goal, your customer, who you are as a brand, and how you want to talk to people as well. So you've got your own kind of style is really important. And then just literally putting together a spreadsheet or something like that, writing down the dates of when you're going to post the content, what type of content you're going to create, what theme of the content you're going to create as well, because it's really easy to just start promoting things all the time. Actually, like Shannon said, adding value is really, really important, and making sure that you're kind of helping and assisting your potential customers. And again, like Shannon said, understanding who your customers are again is also really, really important. But just having that plan just means you're not wondering every day, wasting 20 minutes or 30 minutes every day thinking, oh, what can I post? I don't know what to do, because you're planning ahead. And then finally, just looking at that plan on a regular basis and saying, what's working, what's not working, and then kind of adjusting from there. And just also, obviously, you're always going to have a little bit of trial and error. And I think that's the best advice I can give. Just have this plan and know your audience, and make sure that you're creating content that helps them and resonates with them as well.
Definitely. I think the theme that's kind of flowing through at the moment is just being able to add value to the people that you see as your audience. That's like very, very key, because loads of people just create content and think, yeah, people are going to flow to it, but they're not actually tailoring it to their actual audience. So that's actually something that's very key. Charlie, quick one from you. So I know that your journey has been quite amazing, moving from America to the UK, and it's just been like you've gone through very political, government, kind of digital comms route. What kind of shaped your journey in that sphere?
Like I think for a lot of people who work in the kind of broader comms, marketing, social media space, something that I think maybe is not clear for people who are thinking about going down one of those routes is just how fluid a lot of the avenues are between all of that work, which is probably one of my favorite things about it, actually. And the reason why it's that fluid is because all of us in this conversation work in a space that is constantly changing. And Lucy and Shannon already touched on that themselves. So what shaped my journey? A lot of it is what is shaping the wider industry that you work in. So just going back to where I started out, to how I became, a social media strategist now. I've done it for a number of years now. The reason why I got into social media was because when I was at intern level, and this is the story of a generation of people who work in media, I was given the social media tasks because the people in more senior roles didn't think it was important and they didn't understand it, and I was young. And I have, and so yes, that's how I started. And at first, when I started doing it, I didn't necessarily understand either how interesting it was going to become, because it was very different in 10, 15 years ago. And I was doing the work so that I would get my kind of kudos in, so I could do some other work that maybe I thought was more important. And one of the things that I have learned as a woman growing up in and being very career driven is just how much effort it takes to put aside those misconceptions and start to really own what it is that you do and what you're really good at. And now looking at how women talk about their work in communications, and I mean that in the broadest of senses. It's super empowering to me even now just to see how people, women in particular, really own their story and own their expertise. And I think that the story of people who started doing social media, sort of just posting for brands, it transcends, yes, I do work in government communications now, but it transcends all of those sort of very rigid sounding boundaries. So I would also just add that, just to touch back on what I just said at the beginning, how fluid this is, that if you have an interest in, in anything that spans how people think and how to, and if you're interested in what motivates them, to something more specific to, maybe you're really driven by social good. Maybe you are really interested in connecting brands with their customers. So all of the things that we're talking about here, I think that the first thing is you don't need to know right away when you're really, really young which one of those you want to focus on. And I've personally gone between journalism and government comms with relative ease, given that traditionally speaking, people think that it's very hard to go between those two things. And the thing that the reason why you can in fact transition and give yourself a bit of space to really understand what you really want to do, and give yourself some time to not know and give yourself some time to investigate that, is confidence in owning that you, like I was saying, you must learn quite early on to kind of hold to your own and what interests you and stay true to that, and not worry so much about what you figuring out how other people will see your career journey. And sorry, I have one more thing to add, which is that specific to government, and the question of if someone is watching who's interested in that space, you'll find that actually if you work in comms in the broadest sense again, that's how a lot of women realistically get into government. And why is that? Well, that's probably a separate conversation. But I would say that this space has always been extremely welcoming and supportive of women. And also, I think there is definitely something to be said about how women are more likely to see themselves in those roles. Am I saying that means that's the only way to get into government? Absolutely not. But if you're already working in the space, then and you're interested in that, then I would say that, there's lots of women who have made that transition.
That is so amazing. You actually have a wealth of knowledge in terms of like this whole digital government comms, and you've done such amazing stuff. We'll ask you more questions about that shortly. But I'd love to ask you, Natalie, what you've done in youth services has been so amazing, and how you've been able to link that back to social media it's not really done. And I'd just like to know how working with the youth and doing youth service has actually linked to you being very active and successful in the social media space.
Yeah, thank you. I actually, what Charlie said really resonated with me, because that's exactly my journey. So I started in local government in customer service. I worked up through into the youth department, and I'll come on to that in a second. And I eventually, after about 3 years, came into a role as a social media officer. And that was a brand new role in their comms team. And I just knew that the skill set and the description was totally me. And actually, because it was a brand new role, this was like 8-9 years ago, there was no kind of degrees or qualifications. I just had to go in there and show them that I knew I'd done my research around what Hootsuite was, and I'd got the kind of premise of what we needed to be doing with social media in the public sector. And the reason why I applied for that role was because about 2 years before that, I had got a job in the youth services department, specifically in the arts sector, in an admin role. My background is in theatre. I'd done a degree in theatre studies, so I was very much interested in the arts. But it was through, at that time, after leaving uni, when Facebook was really becoming a thing, and the problem that we were facing in the arts sector was, how do we communicate with these young people in the youth centres and out in our communities and let them know what we're doing, because we need to really reach them. And I kind of said, well, everybody's hanging out on Facebook. Why don't we head over there and see what we can do? And actually what I learned, and what was really key, was that like showing up in the space where young people are is fine, and they're happy to have you do that. But you have to be really respectful of the space where you're hanging out, and you need to use it in the way that young people are using it, and that you need to know that things are always changing, as Charlie said quite rightly as well. So, you know, we went from kind of hanging out on Facebook to maybe creating, you know, YouTube channels, thinking about how we could integrate WhatsApp, and, you know, allowing our strategy to really change. But ultimately, they're really welcoming to us trying to communicate in a space where they felt comfortable, as opposed to us expecting them as a local government, them to kind of come to us and find us through traditional means like flyers and leaflets, or, you know, searching for us on the website. So that really started to get me thinking about how we could actually influence behaviour in a positive sense in local government through the use of social media. And actually, that's what then carried through into me starting a business, was how do we use the online platforms to do good, to connect people, to influence decision-making behaviours, and actually use our skill for something bigger than us. So, yeah.
Wow, that is so amazing. It's kind of just showing me the importance of community building, that even the government are now seeing the power, or saw the power of community, and knowing that they can't just use leaflets to attract people. It's actually going into where people are and building a community of people. And that's kind of brings me on to you again, Shannon, how you've been able to build a community online. Like the Click has seen 1.4 million, an audience of 1.4 million people. How have you been able to build a community?
I think basically when it came to the Click, I built it when it came to the social part. We worked with top talent. We worked with top content creators like photographers, videographers to build the platform. And with social media, I think content creation is something really big. Working with influencers is another way. Adding value is another avenue. But I also think thinking differently, like with the Click, we built a community on Pinterest as well that has over 500 top talent on there, like top influencers who basically come to that community every single day. So I think thinking differently, and that as well comes down to like whether it's TikTok, there's a new opportunity to be unique and not just think, oh, what to post every day and it has to be one Instagram. It's to think outside the box.
Wow, that's amazing. And that brings me on to you, Lucy, as well, because you've decided to empower 1 million women, and that's such an impressive goal that you are going to achieve. But how would you go about achieving that? How have you gone about building the community you've built so far, and how do you think you can create opportunities for all these women that you're trying to empower?
It is quite a big goal to set, isn't it? And we were still at the start of our journey, to be honest with you. But actually, I think there's such a big difference between audience and community. A community is where people come together around a common cause or common issue. And by having this big mission to empower 1 million women through digital skills, so many women can get behind that, and so many women want to be part of that. And what we do is we nurture the community, and we make sure that everybody knows that their voice is really special and important. We make sure that everybody gets a chance to share as digital skills. So everybody's got these unique skills, and of course everybody shares them in a different way. So we started doing skill sharing challenges and that kind of thing to shine a light on every single woman in the community, and just to keep the community alive. Obviously, at first it was really hard because it's brand new, so to find ways to get people engaged and having conversations and that kind of thing, it didn't just happen naturally. However, over the following months, it starts to happen. You can start to see people talking to each other and really connecting without you having to be there. So it just means that the community is a community, whether you belong in that, whether you're there or not, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, it's a big mission, and I think we will reach it. We're getting closer to it all the time. But yeah, the community is absolutely incredible, and that is the difference between community and audience. Community is that bringing people together around a common cause or a common issue.
And I think that is one of the most important things, actually having a two-way line of communication where you're not the only person that's speaking to the community constantly, but giving them a platform where they can actually speak to each other and help from each other. And that's, I think, how you're going to actually grow that 1 million women. Every woman knows someone else. And once they give the opportunity to utilize your platform, they bring more women in and then more women on. And over time, you just have your 1 million women right there. Exactly that. I'm excited for you. So, Charlie, I'm so excited. When I saw that your profile said that you deal in crisis comms, I was thinking, this is exciting. I'd love to know how one of the most challenging but rewarding crises that you've kind of dealt with and how you facilitated it.
Yeah. So crisis comms and breaking news is one of the things I've always been interested in doing since I was really, really young, like a student. And I think there's for me at least, there was always a lot of hype around the idea of working in such a high pressure environment and the reward that you might get from that. And now I work in it. I mean, yeah, I've done a few of these. So if I give you some headlines of and told you that that I was working in the teams behind the scenes in those moments, some of them are, most of our breaking news these days is often actually very traumatic. So I don't mean to be flippant about any of these moments, but in my experience, I've worked in breaking news teams covering, the response to terrorist attacks in real time. I worked in the digital comms team at Downing Street during the kind of time period of the Grenfell Tower fire. And now working for the Mayor of London and having a more senior role, I'm really happy to be putting into practice some of the things I've learned being more junior in other teams about how you actually get that done. And being in the Mayor's digital comms team, you're at the forefront. You're the first comms response during incidents that are either of interest or stressful to Londoners, and it's a huge responsibility that we take very seriously. You have to. So what can go wrong? Well, sometimes the thing that can go wrong is that you actually say very little. And I've definitely worked in teams where the response on social media has been minimal, and that has been the wrong call. Previously, not in this role. And if you in that time period, probably when social media is a bit newer, if you were working in that time or just a user in that time, it was before the kind of rules started to be written about how every business and every comms team would have a social media presence. There was a very clear separation between people who were using social media boldly during breaking news and brands in the broader sense that were not. They could have been news outlets, they could have been individuals, they could have been government departments. And it's really interesting just to bring back what we were just discussing, what you were just discussing about community. Because the one thing I wanted to really share about this topic with you is that 80% of the work that a breaking news or crisis comms team does during a crisis comms moment is done before the news breaks. It is done in the months of preparation leading up to an event that you cannot predict, when you do not know when it will come. And it is about having primarily a really, really strong, trusting relationship with your team, because let me be clear, I am absolutely one of a team when it comes to responding in crisis comms moments in this job and in any other. If you don't have a team that you trust, and if you aren't clear and you aren't quite practiced on what your role actually is and how you're going to operate as a team in those moments, it will be a disaster. And the other thing I wanted to touch on, just because it was just brought up, is how important it is for you to have done the work to really understand your social communities and know what it is they want to hear from you when you have very little time to actually be crafting, in this case, the content, because you have to act extremely quickly. So ultimately, it's very exciting in the moment, but you will find that if you're interested in working in it or really doing the work, it will be a hell of a lot less fun if you don't enjoy the team that you're working in on an everyday basis. And you will find that when the energy and the adrenaline is gone at the end of it, you really have to be able to ask yourself the question, a bit like if anyone is sporty, which I'm certainly not, but at the end of a match, you have to think not just did you win, but do you like who you were in the moment? Did I like who I was that day when I went to work and it all got really crazy? And I think that if you don't like who you are in those moments of high stress, which all of us will experience in different ways in our jobs, it's very hard to then find breaking news exciting. You actually just end up feeling really deflated.
Yeah, that is so true. I'll just go on to Natalie quickly. So you've explored loads of different paths within social media. Do you have any tips, whether it's around community building or anything that we've not explored so far? Do you have any tips for anyone that is looking to chart a path in social media?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really, really good question. And, working in an agency environment means that you have various types of clients, all with different needs, all with different audiences, different communities, and you have to know and understand all the channels available to you in order to pick the right one and make the right fit and create the right content at the right time. So anybody's looking to get into this industry, I would say, be familiar with the platforms themselves. Be a practitioner is what I like to say. Be a practitioner of social media, so you understand the tools available to you, so that at any moment, as Charlie was saying, as Lucy was saying, when something presents itself to you, you know exactly how to use it and how to deliver a message on the right channel. I also think it's really, there are some rules that transpire across all social media channels. It doesn't matter what you're using, the same kind of ethics, I guess, remain the same. Like creativity is really key, for example. Like with the sheer amount of content that's being pushed out into the internet these days, you have to strive to create, thumb-stopping content. How do you get somebody's attention so that they consume your message? And that really needs to sit at the top of your strategy. It does for us. Community as well, as Lucy was saying, and conversation. I think far too many people tick the box when it comes to social media and almost just broadcast their messages out there. Follow, I kind of think Lucy was saying earlier about having this just must post every single day approach. And actually nobody takes the time to listen on social media and engage with those communities, having conversations with people, listening to what that people are saying, and let that influence how you deliver your strategy moving forward, or actually how you deliver your business model and your product or your services. So I think that's really key. And also, like Shannon said from the beginning, adding value. Doesn't matter what channel you use, whether it's TikTok, Snapchat, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Facebook, whatever, you need to add value to your audience, because otherwise they're going to switch off pretty quickly, or you're not going to find them at all. So they're my kind of key tips for any industry on any channel.
That's very, very true. And within this sphere, when people especially are starting businesses on social media, they're even finding that working with influencers is generating loads of results for them. It could be someone that started their business in their bedroom, but by collaborating with an influencer or sending a package to the influencer, they're realizing that their reach is enormous and is generating loads of return for them. So Shannon, for people that don't know what influencer marketing is, can you give us a bit of knowledge about what that is and what your role in Very entails?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, because when I started in influencer marketing, I started in Arcadia. There wasn't a role for influencer. Like, I kind of was like, I want to be an influencer marketing manager, and that was kind of where it led to. And I think within influencer, like, to give you an overview, you can look at it in so many different ways. Like, it could be like driving brand awareness to spread that message around your brand. It could be completely content creation, like for your social channels, or it could be revenue. It could be partnering with an influencer to do a collection. And there's so many different ways of looking at it. And to give you, I suppose, an insight at Very, I look after all influencer marketing from a Very brand perspective. And then we also have over 1,000, I think it's 800 brands. And so I look after like Nike, Benefit, Dyson, GHD, all those brands and their influencer marketing. And then we also have high-end brands from Tommy Hilfiger to Coach as well. So there's a huge collection of brands and creating content and brand awareness around all those different moments and campaigns. So every day is different, to give you an answer. For Very, brand awareness is huge. Very's growing massively, and they want to become one of the most well-known retailers in the UK. And as well as that content. So you'll see influencer marketing, influencer content on all our social channels, on site, CRM. So it really does drive that engagement. If you place influencer marketing content on your social channels, you usually will see an uplift in engagement and even ROI. So that's a huge area of my job. So every day really is different. Like we've just done a few campaigns with, what we recently did one with Benefit, and I was working with like talent from like Patricia Bright to Sabina Hannan to Laura Nicole, Candice Braithwaite, and working with all those talents. So I manage those talent on a day-to-day basis and ensure they're creating the right kind of content for the whole business, basically.
That's such an exciting role. That's so exciting, especially having to balance that with your actual business as well. That must be amazing and exciting. And in terms of even with influencers, a lot of people don't even know what influencer marketing is. A lot of people, the pace at which social media is moving, the different titles and jargons is just coming very, very fast and a very quick pace. Even with me personally, when I was at university in 2015, I was doing a digital marketing course, but I wasn't taught anything about social media. I actually had to go and do an internship with Soap and Glory, and that's when I was like, okay, cool. I do this for fun, but this is actually a career path. Let's go. So, Lucy, a lot of people don't know about social media, or know about social media, but don't know about actually studying social media, or don't know routes into social media as a viable career path. How have you been able, and why have you created courses to actually help the women pursue career paths in social media, and just to even know a bit more about social media?
Yeah, so with Digital Women, what we've done is we've created an online platform, like I said, where people can learn from each other and share skills with each other. But our team have also created our own videos and own courses, which are CPD accredited, so that people can just kind of learn the basics around social media content creation and that kind of thing. And we are working on putting together courses for people who want to get into social media as well. But it's a lot. It takes a lot to create a course like that, because there's so much that people need to know, and we're going to have to be lots of external experts. But I think it's really important, if you're looking to pursue a career in social media, or you're looking to start as a freelancer, or start your own business in social media, which is where I started about 10 years ago, freelancing. I worked in media and then started freelancing. I think it's just really important to understand, like Natalie was saying, the different social networks, understand kind of how it seems like really fun and glamorous, doesn't it, to be a social media manager or social media marketer? It's actually really hard. And I know lots and lots of social media marketers within my community. And actually, there are times when you don't get to sleep because there is a crisis or something's happening and you're working all night. And, you've got to be prepared for anything that this role will throw at you. But it is hugely rewarding, actually, I think, as well. But in terms of training and courses and that kind of thing, so Facebook have some amazing training courses, Facebook Blueprint. This helps to give you all of the fundamentals around Facebook, how to use the platform, how to use advertising. You can also get accredited, so you can earn badges. So you take exams via Pearson. They're really hard. I've taken them, and they are so hard. So just do the work and study and try and take on some campaigns and learn how to create. If you're interested in going into advertising, learn how to create advertising campaigns. Work with maybe your friend who's got a business or something like that who's perhaps not using them. See if you can work out how it works. And then obviously Google Digital Garage is a great start to learn how to get into using digital and that kind of thing. And of course, communities like Digital Women and that kind of thing are there to share information and skills with you, and also to be able to talk to a community who are working in that area or in that industry and ask questions directly. And having role models and mentors is also very, very important, I think. So you're not just going into it blindly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what you've said is very, very key. A lot of people think that social media, working in social media is very, very easy. It's all fluffy. It's what it's like Emily in Paris is just, oh, I take this picture and that's it. But they don't they don't realize how much effort goes into it. The fact that social media is moving very fast, but you can't move fast, even though you're meant to be moving fast, because you have to be paying attention to detail. You can't send something out that has a spelling mistake, or because it's very major for clients if you send something out and there's a spelling mistake. So Charlie, in terms of your job role, your day-to-day, especially communicating to the whole of London for the Mayor of London, how do you make sure that you kind of are meticulous in everything that you do? Like, what's the day-to-day in your life like?
Day-to-day life is very busy. So you know, for the last year and a half, as you can expect, we have been pretty singular in focusing our communications on anything related to the pandemic. And it has definitely, like I'm sure for a lot of watching, a lot of what we might have been planning to be focusing on at the time. But what's interesting for people to know, well, it's funny actually that Lucy just straight up said it's really hard, because that's what I was thinking when Natalie, Lucy and Shannon were speaking about growing communities and also influence marketing specifically, just how hard it is. And one of the reasons why it's hard is because what all of us have touched on, which is just that social media is an extremely broad field. And as I said earlier, it is always changing. One of the things that I just really want anyone who is wondering, and this applies whether they want a job in social media or just that they have a business and they're wondering how do they get their teeth stuck into understanding social, is you can certainly be practicing and doing while you do the learning. And in fact, the learning never stops. So now that I'm at I'm in my first management role officially, like I now manage people. I've been doing that for a year and a half. When I was much more junior, I think I had an impression that by the time you get to management level, you are no longer doing the learning, that you know what's up. And I think that, you know, in media, it's possible, although this wasn't my experience, but it's possible that before social media came along, that might have been more true, but it's certainly not true now. And so to answer more directly your question, what is my day-to-day life like? It is usually trying out something new, testing something, figuring out what works. That is an absolutely huge fundamental part of being a social media strategist. And there are lots of different ways that you can say that you do that. Like it's not always social media strategist. But, you know, I think well, in terms of like other things to know about, you know, working in it every single day, that the fact that it's constantly changing does make it really interesting. But one of the things that, you know, if you really want to grow and develop and, you know, really own this space as an individual, like for your own professional development, is that you also have to be willing to learn how to influence people around you who you work with, who are able to open doors to your ideas, to get on board with what you're saying. And that in itself is a huge skill set, which I am sure that Lucy, Natalie and Shannon have a lot of experience in, because we are of the kind of generation of people who made social media our profession and our real specialty when that wasn't really a thing. And one of the things that Shannon said that really got me thinking when Shannon was explaining the real ins and outs of doing influencer strategy is that when I was very junior at a very big international media organization, when I was quite young, I was asked to present on what influencers were. And I was asked to present on that at the kind of like biannual, you know, senior stakeholder meeting, internal meeting. And I had my little presentation and I was very nervous. And I remember I really needed a glass of water. But what I really remember about that was that the kind of conclusion, the discussion around the table when I was finished was, this is really just a moment in time this influencer culture, and it's really just it's ultimately just gonna fizzle out. And you can actually Google and find opinion pieces to that effect and how wrong they were. And what's really interesting is that brand to this day does not have an influence strategy. That it's very clear. That's quite easy for you to determine by looking at their accounts. And Shannon now has an entire brand around it. And I'm sure this also is something that Natalie and Lucy have also touched on in their careers. So anyway, in conclusion, it's often very changing. And one of the things that I think about in my day-to-day life that my colleague said to me recently is the younger generation are going to take our jobs, and we need to figure out what to do on these newer channels, right? So that's meant to be a motivational conclusion for anyone watching, that, you know, there's a lot of space for you.
That's so amazing. That is very, very true. You always have to constantly because social media is ever developing. People are always bringing up new things that businesses have to catch up with. So it's very important to actually know exactly what's going on. So Natalie, how have you, Charlie said something very important about influencing people around you personally. How have you been able to influence businesses that come to you for social media strategy? You were able to help over 130 businesses develop a social media strategy, and within 3 years. How did you go about doing that?
I spent a lot of hours out in my own community. It was at that time, the model of my business was about mentorship and training. There was a real need at that moment for the private sector to get a grip of what good social media meant. And in my opinion, at that time, they had a lot to learn from the public sector, because we were actually focusing on conversation. And I think rather than that whole selling thing, so that's what we kind of needed to focus on. But I managed to influence businesses in making the decision with me purely through my own content creation. So I showed up on all the social channels that I told people I was able to teach them about. I was getting results. I never stopped learning, as Charlie said. I'm, always hungry to learn more about social media and what's changing and what's the new thing and how that can impact other businesses. And working in an environment like this, when you have to understand so many different businesses, it was really important to get case studies from a variety of sectors. So I would be able to go out to people and say, actually, I've worked with finance, I've worked in leisure, I've worked in retail, I've worked here. And I do think that experience in public sector and the comms team for a local authority set me up really very nicely, because we were writing strategies, delivering training for over 60, 70 different services. So I'd worked with leisure departments, I'd worked with revenue generating services, I'd worked with finance, youth, customer services. And actually all of that experience gave me the confidence to be able to go out to other people and say, I know how to work with your business. And also, by the way, look at how much I'm smashing it over here on my own social media. And that's kind of how I managed to do that.
That's so amazing. That's very awesome. So as we said, social media is ever evolving. There's so many things that are always coming up. 5 years ago, TikTok didn't exist. 2 years ago, Clubhouse didn't exist. So Shannon, how has it been heading up TikTok for a business, for Very, to actually implement that and integrate it within their business model?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, because I think everyone is aware of TikTok at the moment. I came across TikTok I met the TikTok team about 2 years ago, and no one was really interested in it. It was more in China and the US, it was bigger. And in March this year, I started seeing people get more involved, and I kind of saw an opportunity that it was growing among an older age group. So I contacted the TikTok team. I asked them to give an introduction to the business. And since in 6 months, we've done 3 campaigns and reached over, I think it's about 4 billion views, which is absolutely, I've never seen anything like it, the level of views. We've done 3 different campaigns. And yeah, I think with TikTok, I really think there's a huge opportunity. And I think if anyone, whether they're a business or they've decided they want to grow their personal brand or want to become an influencer, I think TikTok is the opportunity. I think Instagram is very difficult to grow alongside YouTube. I think if you set up a TikTok, and one of my friends is a photographer and she set up a TikTok account, and I said to her, post every day for the next year and you will be famous. And she just rang me the other day and she was like, Shannon, I literally got 500,000 views on one of my videos. And she's been like struggling to get past like 10K followers on Instagram. And I think that just is amazing because TikTok values good content and new people, new creators. So I think that's something that I think is really special.
Honestly, it is, because I'm seeing so many people create actually valuable content on TikTok that it's just in 30 seconds. And you know, the time attention span of people is very short now. So the fact that they can actually get value in such a short space of time is actually driving loads of people to do very well on TikTok as a medium. But we haven't really spoken much about brand partnerships. We've spoken about influencers, but not really brand partnerships. And brand partnerships is very, very key, especially when you're trying to have a platform as a business, maybe even a small business, to be able to reach more people. So Lucy, how have you been able to leverage on brand partnerships, and what tips would you give to someone that wants to actually start brand partnerships and get more people to know about them?
Okay, well, in terms of, specifically, we've partnered with a few companies such as NatWest, we even partnered with Facebook as part of Digital Women. But my background, actually, before I started in social media, I worked in magazines. So I worked in advertising sales and that kind of thing. So for me, that gave me a really good grounding as to how to, work out how to sell to these companies, or how to get into these companies, not be frightened to do it. And the key is, I think, to understand that, you have something that actually they want. You have a community that they want to reach. So you're not really, although you're selling something, you're not really, it's a partnership. You want to make sure that that company as well has the same values as you. So a company like NatWest, for example, who we partnered with from the beginning with Digital Women, really, they have a lot of narrative around women in business and women's digital skills and that kind of thing. So it was the perfect company really to go and talk to. And so I think that's the most important thing to think about is, does this brand align with the community or the values of my business? And if they do, who is it that I need to speak to? So then you've got to do a bit of research and try and find out who the right person is. So social media is great for that, actually. Just LinkedIn, reaching out to people on Twitter, starting to get the conversation going, get people to notice you, and then perhaps like slide into their DMs. Hi, I've noticed that you're doing this and that you look after that. And we have this amazing community, or we have this, this amazing company. Do you want to partner with us? Do you want to sponsor? Do you want to help us to increase awareness even more? And most of the time, if it's the right fit and you've done your research, they will say yes, and they'll be interested in working with you.
That's awesome. I'm just going to ask 2 more questions, then we'll open the ground to the audience, because there's loads of questions piling up and I'm excited for you guys to answer them. So Charlie, I've seen that you've kind of had loads of different job roles that are obviously linked to digital comms. And traditionally, we're told to stay within one organization, work there, build up pension there, and just keep growing within that organization. But the new generation are relentless in actually pursuing different career paths or different industries that are still within the same things that they're interested in. What advice would you have for a young girl that is starting off her career and not wanting to be stuck in one company, but wants to kind of move about a bit?
Well, I think that we have to be realistic about, particularly for a younger generation right now, how much they might actually be struggling to find, one job that they would be interested in working in, let alone a job that would be offering them career progression. And I think that for me, it was difficult back when I was starting out, and it is going to be difficult now. And I know that will be a stressor for younger people, and that's a real concern to anyone who cares about opening doors for the next generation. So I have one very close friend who has stayed at the same company since she got her first job, and she is now a director level, and she's loved her job. And I have moved around every year and a half, roughly, to a different company, and I have also loved my career. And I think the main thing, just to say as a piece of advice to try and keep it short, is when you are starting out, you tend to go on social media and look at other people's LinkedIn profiles and think they are now successful. Let me now see how they got there. Very specifically, oh, that must be how you do it. And my advice is for you to, if that's what you're doing, to try and figure out how you're going to get to wherever it is you want to be. Or in fact, if you actually just don't know where you want to be, just don't do that. Because the best thing that you can do, the thing that has made me happiest in my career, and the thing that has really got me through difficult times, is learning what it is to actually listen to your gut, which is a skill in itself, which we don't have time to get into, and listening to that and stop looking. I mean, obviously everyone needs mentors and everyone needs people they can trust, but ultimately you do have to stop looking out at what other people are doing and start looking in about what you should be doing.
Yeah, it's actually honing in on the value that you can bring and not looking at what other people have done and their roots. That's very, very true. So quick question, last one to you, Natalie. How did you think or begin to scale up businesses? How did you know that was something that you were actually good at? And do you have any advice for anyone that wants to scale up a business or wants to start a career within scaling up other people's businesses?
Yeah, I think for me, you need to know that that's what you want to do. Because I went onto a business accelerator course very early on when I started my business, and I got wrapped up in thinking it was all about the turnover and it was all about hitting these monetary targets, and I ended up, quite frankly, burning out, and I don't think that's healthy at all. So I think my advice would be to know what goal you're setting yourself, and know, and quite rightly, as Charlie said, that's going to be individual to you. So know where you're trying to get to, and you will know the right time when the time is right to scale up, because you will be feeling the pressure, the pull and the push, people wanting and demanding your services or demanding what you do versus the capacity at which you can deliver that, and the choices that you're having to make around, do we hire, do we get freelancers in, do we expand services? Are people asking us for stuff that we don't do? That is when you'll know the right time to scale up is, and that is probably when you want to seek advice from role models and other people around how to do that in the best way possible, because every business will be slightly different and will need a slightly different approach to scaling up. But yeah, I would say, like, don't be kind of convinced by, again, what you see outwardly as to whether or not actually what scaling up means for you and what that is, because everybody's definition of success is different, and that's what you need to work towards, your own definition of success.
Definitely. So we're going to open the ground now to the audience to ask a few questions. So Rianne Williams has asked, I'm a coach and IG is where I seem to get most of my clients. Do you feel Reels are the way forward in order to grow your audience on Instagram, as that seems to be all people are talking about at the moment? Anyone can answer this.
I would say, from my perspective, we work with top influencers, and some of them have like 3 million followers or even more. And we've actually, something interesting on this point is they're saying that they only want to partner with us on Reels because they feel this is their best performing content. So I think Reels are a huge area that Instagram are pushing. So if you do want to grow and get seen by more people, I would probably controversially say that you could just put out Reels and probably grow your Instagram massively and get way more people viewing your content.
Does anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, all I was going to say is actually, if you're saying that, I do agree with Shannon as well. And if you're saying that you're getting most of your clients from Instagram and you're not using Reels, just try it. You have nothing to lose. Just give it a go and try it for, consistently for a while and see what happens. And then from there, you're kind of just testing and learning and seeing what works and continuing on. But as a small business, it's definitely just try it.
Mm-hmm.
So Anita has asked, it's so inspiring to hear what's possible when we own our story, explore new territories with the use of technology, put it the work and make an impact. Okay, compliments. Lovely to see fellow EN members here. Thank you. And Sylvia Martha's asked, how do I actually get someone to use my product? Is there an etiquette for contacting influencers? Good question.
Great question.
Yeah, great question. I think from my perspective, I think definitely be real, be honest, and keep in mind it's a relationship. I think you got a lot of people messaging influencers with like demands and asking already like for like really strict requirements. I think it should be very natural. I think you should be real. If like you're a new business, just tell the influencer, like, I've just started this business, this is my vision. I think having that relationship is everything, and it really worked for me. And I think as well, having a natural interest in the influencer's audience and content, not just appearing out of nowhere and you realize they don't even follow you and they're like demanding that they want to partner with you. I definitely think it's that realness, relationship driven and authentic conversation.
Yeah, and I'd echo that as well. Just to not kind of just go straight in there, find an influencer, message them, go, oh, I've got this new product. Can you pop it out on your socials? You need to build a relationship with them and know that their content is the right fit for you, and then have that authentic approach to ask them to kind of partner with you.
I was going to actually add something from the other side of that as well, because I create a social media content planner. It's really nice. It's a really pretty planner and everything. But I get a lot of influencers, like micro influencers, contacting me all the time, asking if I can send them a planner. And I send it to them. I don't mind to send them because they're like, I want to share this on my Instagram. I love it so much, and I've got loads of people who would be interested. And obviously, I choose the right people. And often they'll share a post on Instagram. Sometimes they don't. I don't mind. And honestly, the amount of sales I get off the back of just somebody posting one of my planners on there. But I think it's really important that if you do want to attract people who want to try your product, the right people who want to try your product, that you are out there creating great content as well that's going to appeal to those people, so that you're really sharing your product in its best light. And the people who really want to use your product are the best people to promote it, I think.
Yeah. I think we could take one more question. So Rojan has asked, anything that Instagram out for you to use, you should use. It rewards the user on the platform. I've worked with someone and I've noticed that their viewership and followers have risen. Thank you so much for that addition. So I'm gonna just ask everyone just one question and then we can wrap up this segment. So what do you think is the future, especially post-COVID? I know everyone's been thinking about this. Just if everyone could just give just one thing that they think is the future of social media and digital post-COVID.
Continuing to be extremely important.
I would have to agree with Charlie. I think social media, when I was in university, I was told it was a fad and influencer marketing was like a terrible job for me to take. So I think it's going to continue to grow and keep taking risks, trying out new tools, being on platforms like TikTok or Clubhouse. And yeah, that's where I think it's going to go.
I think is going to continue. Absolutely agree with Charlie and Shannon what they said, and I think it's going to really continue to push that one-to-one interaction between user and brand or business. That's where it's really going to focus even more on. And with things like Clubhouse, I think audio social is really going to start to come into its own.
Yeah, completely agree as well. I think, none of us have a crystal ball, and if we could have looked 10 years ago at what was happening, what's going to happen now, we couldn't have even imagined it, could we? But yeah, social media is so important. Influencer marketing is really, really important. Keep an eye out for new platforms, because just as you get used to something, you'll have another TikTok or another Clubhouse or something completely different. So yeah, social media is going to continue to be absolutely huge. Keep your eye on the ball. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. This has been very great and insightful. I've taken so much away from this. Thank you very, very much. And now, after this segment, we have the Now Media segment coming up at 10:30. So make sure that we're all tuned in and supporting. Again, happy International Women's Day, year, month, and literally life. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.